Polyp works here. There have been many a theory about one of Nami's Mikans becoming a devilfruit at some point in the story. This whole theory process gained in massive popularity during the Punk Hazard arc, where we really get to see for the first time how a lot of devilfruit mechanics work, namely with Smiley. Smiley, like say Lasso or Funkfried, is an unusual thing that has eaten a devilfruit. In this case, he was toxic gas. So when he dies after becoming Shirokuni, he has his devilfruit transferred into the bag of apples that the Caesar Clown goons were carrying on their sled. So we see that the axolotl essence within the devilfruit only affects apples and then changes apples blue with your classic devilfruit swirls. So based off of that, we know how an essence changes a devilfruit, and from that we also know that devilfruits have a particular host that they like to inhabit. This was also brought up during Blackbeard's fight with Ace, as he says he memorized all the shapes and colors of all the devilfruit within the Devilfruit Encyclopedia. We also get another breakdown about devilfruit reincarnation during Dressrosa, where Gats explains the Flare fruit and all of its abilities. So, based off of that, the theories have always gone in relation to the Mikans on Nami's tree is that Monet's fruit essence would imbue one of those Mikans with the power of the Snow fruit, giving way to saying that the Snow fruit itself was a Mikan at one point. Where that is always a very cool theory, and I've always been a fan of that theory. I think another fruit was actually a Mikan at one point. And that fruit essence is going to possess one of the Mikans on Nami's tree after this character's death. The character in question of which we're talking about, who might indeed kick the bucket very soon, is one Bartholomew Kuma. You see, during the Eggcake arc, which is going on currently, Kuma is in a bit of a way because he's constantly getting blown up as he tries to climb the red line. But what's also very important is that we're getting a lot of emphasis on his backstory and who he actually is as a character, on top of a lot of misconceptions about who he is as a character through the eyes of other people, such as Jinbei. But we know that Bonnie, his adoptive daughter, presumably, does know him the best and is the one who's going to potentially reveal his backstory to the audience by absorbing the memories that are currently held in Kuma's bubble that is being held inside of Vegapunk's laboratory. From when that story concludes and after we get all that we need to know about Kuma and who he actually is as a person, I think his character would effectively be complete after all these events take place, meaning that he himself doesn't really need to continue existing as a character in the narrative. So, after he dies, presumably during the events that are happening over at the Red Port, I think his fruit is going to inhabit one of the Mikans on Nami's tree. Now, you might be asking, what relationship does Kuma have with the ship or the crew in general? Well, that's a very good question. We know that Kuma separated all the Straw Hats to various locations that would best benefit their separate skill sets so they could be stronger for what is to come. I don't know who put him up to this. Presumably, seeing as how the revolutionaries just seem to be portrayed as ignorant of all of his actions, I would think it was either a plan that he made up himself after gaining some knowledge from somewhere, or a plan that he and Vegapunk concocted, because both of them know the importance that the Straw Hat crew has for the world moving forward. Additionally, we know that Kuma himself, in his final mission as a cognizant person, wanted to protect the Sunny during the 2-year time skip. And we see in Fishman Island, once the time skip has officially started, that it was Frankie who actually comes back to the ship and sees that he's all beat up. And after Kuma scans him and recognizes Frankie as a member of the Straw Hats, he simply walks away. So narratively now, we're connecting Kuma very intimately and very directly to the safety and well-being of not only the crew, but the safety and well-being of the ship. So even though it may seem narratively convenient, it would make a lot of sense if the fruit essence of the pawpaw fruit were to then go back to the ship and possess a Mikan. Also, if we're connecting wills to devilfruits, you could say that his final will as a free-thinking individual was to protect the Straw Hat ship for some purpose. So I would think, for all intents and purposes, that would be tied both narratively And I guess lore-wise, even though again it does seem convenient to the Mikans on the Thousand Sunny. Another very interesting development that has been happening in the story, narratively, Kuma as a weapon has been replaced thoroughly on various fronts. As we see in Egghead, there is a Pacifista Mark III with new abilities that previous Pacifista models did not have. Additionally, we have a super Kuma in the form of S-Bear, whom is a seraphim that can shoot lasers, potentially have pyrokinesis on top of having the abilities of the Paw Fruit. So in terms of being a weapon, Kuma has been replaced nearly thrice over because you have the normal Pacifista models, the Mark III Pacifistas, and S-Bear. So yes, he has been replaced thoroughly in every respect other than being a character. So after we get to see what Bonnie sees from touching Kuma's memory bubble, I think the chapter will be closed on Kuma as a character. I must admit, in a previous video, I did say that I thought it would make more sense for Vegapunk to be solely responsible for the Paw Fruit's reincarnation upon Kuma's demise. However, after thinking it over and thinking about just how much Kuma has been involved with the success of the Straw Hat Pirates and also the protection of their ship, it just makes more sense that now the Straw Hat Pirates have to protect Kuma's will and Kuma's essence, because based on what we see in Dressrosa, devil fruits do contain the essence, or at least the memory, of the previous person in the hearts of those who knew them. We see this too a little bit in Egghead, where Frankie is actually bawling at the idea that Senor Pink has died when he sees S-Shark with his ability. So the Paw Fruit might as well be Kuma, and it would make sense based on how much he has helped the Straw Hat Pirates, that his essence would be charged to the Straw Hats now to protect. And I think at the end of this arc, if all things go at least somewhat according to plan, Vegapunk and Bonnie are going to end up on the Thousand Sunny anyway. Though I do think it will be Bonnie who finds the Paw Fruit on Nami's Mikan tree, because first of all, it'll be appropriate to find her father's fruit. Second of all, we've seen that Bonnie is one of few characters that we know of that has actually seen Kuma before he's eaten the Paw Fruit, because in a flashback we see a adult Kuma with glasses holding up a child Bonnie. And at that point he did not have the ears, which we've talked about before, that are most likely a product of him eating the Paw Fruit. Long story short, she knows Kuma better than anybody else. So it would only be appropriate that she finds his fruit on Nami's Mikan tree. It would also be very appropriate that she would find the fruit just out of pure gluttony, but then in her gluttonous ravage of Nami's tree, she finds something odd, and that turns out to be the Paw Fruit. If you like stuff like this, please feel free to check out my YouTube channel, PollyP Works. And if you like what you see, I would appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. See you next time.